Welcome to Spirit School. I'm your mentor, Danielle Sarank, also known as the Squamish Medium. In this podcast, I share honestly all I have learned about the mediumship and spiritual development journey. My intention is to normalize these conversations, to make way for a more confident, clear, and connected wave of lightworkers, serving the world of spirit with an open and joyful soul. Welcome again to Spirit School. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Spirit School. And of course, I am here for your monthly spirit messages. I am so excited for this one. As I'm feeling into what Spirit was wanting me to bring through, I do feel that this also came through last year at the same time. Now, keep in mind, I don't remember what I said last month, but for some reason, there's this like essence of familiarity around what I'm going to be bringing through. It is actually something that I personally experienced last year. And therefore, I do believe that it would have come through in spirit messages. But I also have a lot of new listeners now. So for those of you who are drawn to listen to this spirit messages this month, and you have heard some of these philosophies before, then you need this refresher and you've simply forgotten some of the lessons that spirit brought us last year. And we also want to be very aware that we're very cyclic beings. And so if you're very aware that you are a cyclic being, you will probably see your life work in seasons. And so for people who follow, the rhythms of Mother Earth in the Northern Hemisphere, winter is a big time to go inwards. It's a time for self-reflection, to get to know yourself at a deeper soul level. I know for myself, I don't typically do a lot of readings in December because it is, even though it's a very popular time for readings, it's a time where I feel like preserving my energy. And I feel like I'm going inwards and dedicating some time to my own spirit and soul. That call inwards is very winter-esque. And of course, my listeners down in the Southern Hemisphere, there are so many of you. You're coming into your summer solstice. This is actually a time to go play and be playful and adventurous. And so all this to say, if you pay attention to your natural cycles and you start to recognize the patterns, you actually start to be a lot easier on yourself. Because for people who have businesses like me, if I don't feel like doing as much this month, I'm not going to beat myself up about it, because it is actually time where I typically like to be alone a lot more and spend a lot of time in spiritual contemplation and time with my own spirit, a lot of time meditating, sitting in the power, all that fun stuff. So be very attentive to that. It did take me I've been tracking my cycles since 2017. So I have 5 years of data almost to kind of like lean on when it comes to, oh yeah, I remember this time of year. I remember this time of year. Another good example around this is in August. I usually take all of August off in my business because it's summer. I want to play. I want to be outside a lot more. But I find now after all these years, that it's actually time where I love to do readings. And so sometimes when I'm taking all that time off in August, I do wish that I was doing some readings as well, because I'm just so into them around that time of year. Hint, book a reading in August if you're interested in readings. But so when I looked at creating my schedule for 2022, which I'm a Virgo, it's all planned out, my friends. I actually am going to be working all of August and taking September off, because September is when my kids go back to school and things are a little bit crazier. And it's like the real change of those seasons. It's like mourning the loss of summer in the Northern Hemisphere and, welcoming in the fall and releasing things, et cetera, et cetera. So being very aware of my personal cycles year after year, I'm able to make decisions that help me live more in alignment with these cycles. Now, this is one of the benefits of being an entrepreneur, that I can pick my hours and I can pick my schedules. And I understand that that is not the case for every single person in every single career. But I will say, for people out there, and I know that there's a lot of you who are building your confidence in your abilities, you're building your purpose behind your abilities, and you may be doing this part-time, you can still pay attention to these cycles and you can still honor them. I had these exact same experiences when I was doing this part-time as well. So it's never too late and it's never too early to look at your cycles. I didn't think that this was going to be part of the spirit messages, but apparently it is. So yeah, just being aware. Awareness is always the first step. You don't have to take action steps, and you can tweak as the years go along. But I will say pretty consistently, even though I'm aware of it, they seem to sneak up on me. I remember thinking last week, I was like, wow, we're coming into December and I still have so much energy. I still have so many things I want to do. But just today, it's November 30th. And I'm like, wow, I think I overcommitted in December. Look at that. And so I scaled back a little bit where I could and to create a little bit more space for myself within December. So it's not too late, right? We can always course correct as we move along. Now, if you're living the 9 to 5 life, nothing against that at all. I actually enjoyed a lot of aspects of that life myself. It doesn't mean you can't recognize, become aware, and honor your natural cycles, even within those spaces. Okay. So there's that aspect of it. Now, the big chunk of what Spirit was wanting me to share this month when it comes into looking into December, and it does actually have to do with a lot of that introverted, introspective space and inquiries, is around this inquiry of who am I? Now, if you're in Spirit School, you're following along with a pen and paper, write that down at the top of the page. Who am I? And the funny thing is that I do a lot of mentoring in my practice. And this has been a theme that has come up time and time again with my clients in this past month. And that's how come I know it's coming up for December as well, because I'm looking at the cycles my clients are in. I'm realizing, wow, I was just here last year. I was even going to record this episode 2 hours ago, but Spirit very clearly said, nope, do it after Taylor's session. You got to talk to Taylor. And this came up again in Taylor's session as well. So I know that this is something a lot more of you are going through because I've seen it with a lot of my clients in this month. And the reality is, we're typically walking around life trying to be what other people think we are, or we're trying to assess, how does this person expect me to show up? Like, how does this person expect me to be? And we're constantly trying to live up to other people's expectations of us. And not only that, but we're very unclear actually what other people's expectations are of us. We're typically walking around presuming what people think we're like, or what they want to hear from us. That's something that's very deep and personal for me. When I first opened up my social media account in 2017, I didn't know what to post because I didn't know what people expected to hear from a very new medium. And for some reason, I had this idea that people expected me to be a lot wiser than I was. Basically, everything was, beyond what I was at this very moment, not feeling good enough in that very moment. And this is very relative to the message, because a lot of us are also walking around not feeling good enough and not feeling enough at all, because we're constantly trying to live up to expectations and perceived expectations that other people have on us. And a lot of us are doing this subconsciously, right? A lot of us are not walking around just trying to overgive and trying to live up to people's expectations. It's actually very subconscious, and it goes back to even how we had to show up around our parents, right? Like, what was the safest way to approach being in this household? So I got what I wanted, so I got nothing but yeses from them, so that I kept them happy, so my life was easier. So a lot of this kind of comes from the way that we were raised as well for many of us. But one thing that I've seen come up a lot too is people constantly inquiring within themselves, like, what do I do next? What makes sense? And I'm using this from like more of a business lens here, because I have a lot of clients who mentor me into building their own spiritual practices. And it's like, well, I feel like I should charge this much because so-and-so charges this much. Or I feel like I should charge this much because, it doesn't really make me that nervous, or it does make me very nervous. And we're constantly even trying to price ourselves based off of what we think and presume other people expect to pay, or other people are willing to pay. Now, I'm just using this as an example to the overall message that's going to be coming through. I promise you, because it's all centered around who am I? Right. So one of the things that Spirit has made me aware of now for about 2 years is, like, we're in this almost like cosmic dance. We're in this dance with consciousness where we constantly forget who we are, and then we remember who we are. So it's like this consciousness dance for people like us who are on this light working path, and we're very curious and evolving as humans and evolving as spirits and souls, where we'll forget who we are and then we remember who we are. And it was beautiful a couple of years ago when I was doing a lot of research on near-death experiences, because I was very curious about the journey home and what people experience when they're at home. Spirit to me doesn't talk very much about the home side. That's not what my body of work is about, but I was very curious about it. And I remember reading different near-death experience accounts where people say they go to this place where they realize that they were perfect and that everything was perfect. And I'm not using perfect as like this human, unachievable measuring stick. It's different than that. This is like divine perfection. It's divine perfection. It's the fact that we are souls that are just perfect because we are. We actually don't have to do anything to prove to ourselves that we're good enough to exist and be, because it's absolute perfection. And this was the constant message that I kept hearing from people who transitioned to the other side and became one with the oneness, with the wholeness, and a lot of the lessons that they bring back. You know, Anita Margiano, Dying to Be Me, fantastic book. If you haven't read that, she talks a lot about this, about how she was able to feel perfect in that moment, just being yourself. And people who come back from near-death experiences, not everyone, but the majority of the cases, live very fearless and courageous lives because they realize everything that held them back from living a very courageous life was actually just trying to live up to other people's expectations and impossible expectations of self. So if we're all walking around with this fear, we're all just trying to be good enough for all the people around us, when the real spiritual growth happens when we feel good enough for us. When we feel good enough for us. So if we're walking around only feeling good when somebody pays us for our gifts, or, people hire us, or we get validated from a client through a testimonial, or we hear a yes in a reading, this is called conditional power. We only feel powerful, we only feel worthy when an external source is validating us. And for people who haven't done that deep inner work around self-worth, that only lasts a little while, right? I teach this in mediumship where it's like we have to neutralize to the yeses and nos. The nos and the yeses can't actually give us that power. We have to have that power from within. We have to be able to build it from within, feel good enough from within, feel satisfied within with our spirit work. And the same thing is through life. If we're only feeling valued and we're only feeling good enough if we're getting raises or promotions or just like, kudos. My son, I always say his love language is praise. He only really behaves when he's being praised or in a situation of praise. So of course he's only 5. We're working on this with him to always feel good enough with his own validation, right? And I feel like that's the journey that we're on for so many of us, especially the ones who will be drawn to listen to the Spirit's messages today, because what Spirit brings us through this self-inquiry of who am I? And this was last year when I was being rocked constantly by comments other people were giving me or not giving me. I would lose my power very, very quickly because I was trying to prove to everyone that I was worthy of being full-time, of being busy, of like having success. And when Spirit last year had me go into this month-long inquiry, which I believe was December, around who am I? And any spare moment I got with myself, anytime I had enough space to berate myself about something I'm not or haven't done, I actually had time to actually inquire about who am I? And I went through this month-long journey when I was already naturally feeling like going inwards with this one inquiry of who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And I'm not going to share the whole journey with you because I want you to be pleasantly surprised if you do take this mission on this month, this inquiry of who am I? But I will tell you that if you know who you are from the inside, not a whole lot can rock you. No criticism, no unmet expectations others have placed on you or you perceive have placed on you, someone challenging your ideas, somebody questioning your price. If you know who you are from the inside, you'll be unstoppable. And this is what Spirit really wants us to inquire about this month as we move into December. If you're somebody who spends a lot of time in your mind, and that's not everybody. So again, I'm not trying to talk to everybody through these Spirit messages. You have the time to ask the world of Spirit and ask your own soul, who am I? And I think that the realizations that come to you will be very dramatic in your life, and they will make big shifts for you when it comes to what comes for you in 2022 and what you're trying to create in your life. Okay, trust me on that. And I want to hear how that goes for you. So one of the things that you may encounter as you start to discover who you truly are, which is unconditional love, a little bit of a hint there, and good enough for every spiritual being who surrounds us, including the aspirers, the guides, the ancestors, the angels. We're so enough. It's not even funny. It makes me question why we fall asleep in this human experience and we forget who we are. But I will tell you that there's no real magic that can compare to rediscovering who you are. You know, they have that saying around the dichotomy of like, there's no light without darkness. There's no joy without sorrow. I believe that to be true, because finding yourself and discovering who you really are at your core essence is a very big moment of gratitude. You're going to be glad that you forgot who you are so you can continue to discover your genuine self, your unconditional power self, the self who can lead yourself out of any funk, out of any situation, and the version of yourself that will allow you to experience that and let it be for a while too, because you signed up to be a human here. But one of the uncomfortable things that comes with finding out who you really are at the core of your very being is that you may have an identity crisis, because you're going to start to become very aware of the different identities that you attach to. I remember last year when I went through these inquiries, I very much, hung to, I'm a medium, but the demand for my mentoring and my teaching way overpassed the demand for a spiritual reading. And I had trouble with that identity, because I discovered through the inquiry of who am I is I'm here to teach. I'm here to share. I didn't go through all this for nothing. I came to teach others based off of my embodied life experiences, my experience as a developing medium. And so I had to loosen my grip around that idea of being Squamish medium and being just a medium and having that one trick, because it's what I was known for. And for the 5 years prior to me, really stepping into that teaching role, it was really hard to let go of that identity. There were other aspects of my identity and my egoic needs that melted away as I went into the discovery of who I am. Who am I? And so for some of you, it may be uncomfortable, and there actually may be a little bit of a loss. There may be like a little bit of grief that comes up when you find out who your true essence is and the different masks that you can let go of. Because the truth is, I am still a medium, and I will always be a medium, because it's what woke me up to my spiritual path. And I'm never going to not do readings as far as I know. I love doing them, but it's not my only identity. And in fact, as I tap into who I truly am, it's actually a very small part of my identity of who I am and what I'm here to do. So don't be surprised if you get challenged through this message from Spirit that you're going to have to let go of some pieces of your identity that you really relied on to make you feel worthy and valued and powerful, because you don't need it. Because what's coming is the true personal power, the solar plexus. When you know who you are, I always feel like the soul, the seat of the soul, resides between the heart and the solar plexus space. They don't really have anything to do with the chakras, but I'm just using that as a kind of guide where I feel my soul sits within, and my soul and spirit sits within my human experience. And it is solar plexus and heart area. So what Spirit shows me is through this inquiry, you're going to have a bit of grief and loss over some pieces of identity of who you are. That could be a worker bee, could be a mom, could be a good wife, could be the one who's always dependable and relied upon, yet your soul is saying that's not actually who you are. You are somebody who craves space. You're somebody who craves a lot of alone time to contemplate. You're going to have to let go of those aspects of yourself that made you feel valuable and valued. But then you're going to achieve that personal power after that, because you're actually going to start feeling a bit more whole. You're not going to become completely whole. That's always the goal. I don't know if we achieve that in these lives. I'll let you know in my next one, if I remember. But this could be uncomfortable for some people. You don't do this deep inner work. You don't sign up. You're not drawn to a podcast called Spirit School by somebody who is a medium, right? And a mentor without going through some uncomfortable shifts. And what Spirit's making me very aware is that this deep inner work that is a germination period, this is the period where the seed starts to break, right? That shell is a protection. And when we start to grow and evolve and come into the spring and emerge from the ground, imagine the courage that it takes to do that. Imagine the discomfort it takes to bust out of that shell and break through the earth's surface to reach for the sun, right? You have to see your journey as being very, very similar to that. So it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to create some discomfort in your life. And you got to handle that with grace as it comes, because you signed up for this. You didn't sign up for an easy ride in this human experience. None of us did, especially coming in at this time. 2021 was hard. To me, 2021 was a lot harder mentally, psychologically, collectively, globally than 2020 was. And I don't think 2022 is going to be easier on a global scale, to be honest with you. I don't feel like until 2024, 2025 that we're going to start coming back to a little bit more of what we were before. And I don't think it's ever going to be the same anyways. So we're going to have to get used to thriving in this discomfort and in this uncertainty. And I feel very much the Spirit messages the Spirit's bringing us for December is helping us prepare a lot more for that. Because we don't have a whole lot of control of what's being done collectively, but we have complete control of the work that we choose to do in our inner world and our thoughts. We have complete control over our thoughts as well. So this is kind of what Spirit is bringing us in for this month. But what I will say is that if we do take this assignment and go into that inquiry of who am I, and I'm talking every meditation, when you're driving, when you're doing the dishes, when you're laying down to go to sleep at night, anytime you have time in your mind to criticize yourself, to talk unkindly to yourself, you have time to ask yourself, who am I? And I very much believe that by the end of this month, if you ask yourself that multiple times a day and even take some intentional space a couple times a week to sit down with that inquiry, I know that the guides and the angels are going to be bringing you a lot of awareness and a lot of epiphanies. And what happens on the other side of this really deep and rich work is accelerated motion forward. Some people might call this quantum leaps. And I promise you that the discomfort that you may feel this month doing this deep work, you wouldn't trade for anything in the world when you get to where you're going. There's a saying one of my mentors says, Melanie Ann Lear, she's like, you're going to wonder how to do it until you wonder how you did it. And that couldn't be more true. I wondered how I could make a living doing mediumship full time. I didn't see any examples in the world of people who did it and sustained the path. None, not a single mentor, not a single medium that I looked up to did I see just doing readings and being successful or even being able to make a living wage off of it. There was always a lot more that they were doing, and I didn't have it in me to do that. I couldn't see that in my awareness. So I wondered what would happen and how would this work? I had no clear plan and I had no idea, but I did it anyways because the flip side was not good. And it was worth it for me to take a chance and just wonder how it would work. And then all of a sudden, months later, my wait list has exploded. My programs are selling out. I could not have predicted that. That was a quantum leap from taking that chance of, I wonder how it's going to work, to just playing and seeing what does work and going through all the deep inner work and all the wounds that were coming up along the way. And on the other side of that was that quantum leap. And honestly, it took me a year and 4 months to finally leave my corporate career. And it was a very painful year and 4 months for me. But looking back to where I ended up, I wouldn't have traded any of that. Not even the lower vibrational chords to that. I would still keep it all. I would keep it all perfectly to get where I am today. And so just trust that what we talk about here and where the spirit brings me the outcome of this, if you do take this assignment on, is a quantum leap forward. And so as much as this might be an uncomfortable month for a lot of you, the rewards that you'll get at a spiritual level will be very deep and very rich and very rewarding. So look at all that this month. It's very deep. It's very, I feel excited about it though, to be honest with you. I don't shy away from this deep type of work. I mean, I'm a Scorpio rising, so like I love it. Scorpio season is my favorite season. It was so uncomfortable this year. So many changes. I was challenged so many times in that season, and I wouldn't trade any of it for the clarity I have now and where I'm going forward. So, if I could be a walking lesson for you that is worth pursuing this path and it's worth steaming forward despite the uncertainties and despite some of the fears that you have come up, which again are really just the potential of unmet expectations, which is what we're trying to heal this month through the inquiry of who am I, then, what are we doing? What are we doing here? So I don't attract people to my energy or to my body of work who are not prepared for these changes. So just know that if you are listening to this, it is for you, because not everyone listens to this, and even regular listeners will probably forget to tune in, or they just won't even see that this podcast was released and they won't get it because the message won't land for them. And I know it's going to land for the people who are attracted and drawn to listen to this. So I wish you the healthiest and happiest December ahead and holiday season. The only thing I really have this month, if you were keen on working with me, is the Desire Masterclass, which is a 3-hour masterclass I'm doing with the Luscious Hustle, who are my soul sisters in business and spiritual entrepreneurship. And we're going to be getting really clear on what we want to bring in 2022. Now, if you're listening to this on December 1st, it's $111 off up until Saturday, the 4th or 5th, the eclipse Sag moon. So just a few days left. I'll drop the link down below, but I'm going to teach you how to use your spirit guides and your spirit helpers to help you bring to fruition a lot of the dreams that you have. A lot of the success I have today is because I've listened to the guidance of my spirit team, and I trust who they bring into my energy. And a lot of us are sitting here thinking we have to do it all alone. So that's what I'm going to be teaching in my hour of the Desire Masterclass. Luscious Hustle, they're going to be dealing with the human design, and they're also going to be dealing with the masculine and feminine energies, in which we all have, but we're either working in the wounded feminine and masculine, or we're working in the divine feminine and masculine. So we're covering spirit guides, spirit teams, angels, getting clear on our goals for 2022, how human design comes into play. I'm a manifesting generator. I can see so much the way that I tick just based off of knowing that I'm a manifesting generator and the way that these girls approach it. And then I'm obsessed with the masculine and feminine energy as well, because I look at everything I do from the masculine and feminine lens, and we are all both. So it's exciting. I'm really excited for this workshop. Sign up if you're interested in, and there is going to be a lot coming up next year when it comes to working with me. So all that will come in another month or two. But for now, that's what I got going. I hope you enjoyed these spirit messages. I hope they landed and resonated. And I hope that by the next time I come in, you're going to have some really big epiphanies on who you are, and with a newfound confidence, but not just any confidence. I'm talking about a sustainable, unconditional confidence. Okay. I love you guys. Have a good month ahead, and we'll chat soon. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of Spirit School. If you did, please leave me a review and a rating wherever you're listening to this podcast. And if you do feel called to share this with your friends, thank you for tagging me on Instagram at Squamish Medium so I can also share. It really helps get the word out about the podcast. If you're interested in working with me in my one-on-one mentorship, a reading, or all the various programs that I run, you can go to squamishmedium.com or check me out on Instagram at Squamish Medium. The link in the bio has everything I am currently working on in service to the world of spirit. Have a great day, guys.